Thank you guys for joining me this evening. The floods. You know what, guys? Listen. I'm being plagued again. Plagued by dreams. Flooding. This dream was weird. It was weird. I was in a building seeking high ground. Bunch of people there too. And the water was everywhere. Water and mud. Red mud. It was everywhere. And the dream ended. After all that, it was so nice to see the sun come out again. It was almost as if the sun was gone for at least 3, 4, 5 days. And then at the end of the dream, I saw this guy. For some reason, I knew these people in the dream. And this guy was in a car, and he was driving into a gas station on a hilltop. And water was up to his neck inside the car, and he made it turn, and it splashed in his face, and he was laughing. So it must have been hot. But when the sun came out, it was incredibly relieving. However, people were relieved that the water was gone. It was like a joy. It was like having a power outage for about a month, and all of a sudden the power turns back on, right? That's how it was. When the water was gone, though, the devastation was clear. Many people didn't know where to go. Now, here's what I got from this. Some people somehow were, imagine being in one state, but you end up in another state altogether because of the water. You're shuffled around so much during a storm, you don't know where you are, right? And when the water's gone, even those that were in the same state were unfamiliar with what was left. It was very odd. But every time I have one of those dreams, and I believe part of this was in California. Part of it was, only part. And I get this eerie sensation about California. I normally don't speak about California too much, save for that disastrous land flip that happened there. But I think that flooding is going to be a very serious thing coming forward. And as weather continues to build, Carolina Beach, for example, there's a tropical storm that's moving northwest. That's causing some severe torrential downpours. Central Europe, that's the Czech Republic, Austria, Romania, Poland, they're all having flooding. Right? One thing gets me about Russia. Now, you guys know that one of the major dreams I had was when in Russia the water came, right? But the water came, a bad water event took place, and it followed the bugs coming out of the ground. The flying insects were all over the place. I mean, everywhere. After the flying insects, because I was in Russia, and I saw this junkyard. It looked like just ruined cities. It looked like the Ukraine does now, actually. It looked just like the Ukraine. But after that, bugs came out of the ground. Flying insects were all over the place, which could imply a problem with flying insects. After that, though, the night came, right? The next morning, because surviving that night was a job within itself. And the next morning, when it was either early morning or still that night, I didn't hear anything. And so I opened the front door of this place. I looked out, and as far as you could see, the sky was reflecting off the ground. Water was everywhere. I mean, everywhere. I really do suspect that we're right at the door of a major event, a disruption, a natural event nevertheless a very disturbing event concerning water. I really do believe that we are at the door of this, this water issue is going to be a very real issue. I do not believe there's going to be a dry place on this earth. I do not. I think that is going to wash over the whole globe, which to me it implies that the earth is going to jerk somehow. Now, of course, these are worries that an average person will not entertain, because understanding the dynamics of how this can happen is not easily put together by most folks. Nevertheless, we're going to have an issue with the water. It's not going to destroy all life on earth. That's not what it will do. But it will. It will be a major event, and it will change quite a few things for us. It will. It will. By the way, just in case you guys in Carolina beaches, right? The storm, it looks like a stalled low-pressure system causing tropical conditions to continue to come into North Carolina. I know you guys had a break, but now you should start seeing the sky darken. The winds are starting to pick up again, and the backside of this low-pressure system is very slow moving. Start to move again. So I hope you guys are ready for that. Just be ready for that. Everybody else, I would advise everybody else to do two things. Listen, I'm going to give you two focal points: fire and water. Fire and water. Do you guys remember the fires in Australia? You remember that whole summer that Australia was essentially burning up? When the governor went off, and he went off somewhere else. He was on vacation, in fact, during the time of those fires. Those fires were devastating, right? Those fires were absolutely devastating. The USA, Europe, the UK, all of them are going to look just like that. We're all going to go through that, and I hope that you guys are ready for that. Everybody's going to go through that. Everybody is. It is something that we can't avoid. If you live in an area where there's very low vegetation, you stand a better chance of not going through that, but you're going to have to deal with single-digit humidity levels anyway, right? Once these fires begin, they create their own weather, right? Their own weather. So we're all going to have to deal with this. Now, we've been incredibly blessed, despite some of the fires, and the fires in California, right? The fires, and there are fires breaking out right now in places where there shouldn't be fires. There are a couple of breakout points on the East Coast. Where's that one place right below PA in Ohio, somewhere in that area? West Virginia, I believe. They recently had a fire breakout, which is odd, right? It's very odd. So they have other fires starting to break out too. And listen, once these conditions begin to form, once they happen, no one cares who told what. No one cares who gave the greater details. No one cares, right? No one cares. Once these things begin, they're going to start consuming life. Like in Australia, you guys remember it was what was the estimate on the animals lost in Australia? It's a number that nobody would believe. By the way, Australia can fit inside, as far as land mass. Australia on fire during that time is the same as the USA being on fire. Do you know that? Australia is about the size of the USA. Just in case you did not know, right? So that would be like the whole of the USA being on fire. That's what it would be like. Australia lost a lot of wildlife. I mean, lots of wildlife. There were several places you could go through, and all you could see were burnt animals. The fire was so explosive, it sounded like, in several occasions, it sounded like a jet engine going off. And it would go from, there's one case where it went 15 miles. It traveled 15 miles, in less than 2 minutes, I believe it was. It exploded. I mean, it was explosive. It was so hot that trees were exploding, right? Animals were exploding from the heat. There were people, lives lost, of course. It instantly disabled vehicles, all sorts of things. People were caught on the highways. It was too late because the fire was traveling. In some cases, up to 40 miles an hour. You can't outrun that, right? And so, if you remember the conditions back then in Australia, we're going to have those same conditions and a little worse in the USA this year coming up. We dodged a bullet this year, right? We're not going to dodge it next year. We have severe drought regions. We don't have enough moisture in the ground to offset some of that, those conditions. And it is certainly going to be one of those times of fire renewal. Fire renewal. So that means we are living in a tinderbox here in the USA. Russia, in fact, I know Russia's cold. In lots of places, they're going to have the same problem. They're going to have it. Europe is going to have the same problem. And I hope that people are ready for this. So when I say know the escape routes, you might want to get a map, an atlas of the area that you live in, right? You cannot rely upon technology. You're going to have some sort of a map of your location, right? So that you know where to go when the smoke starts, billowing, and you can't see where you're going. You're going to have to understand where the roadways are. You're going to really have to understand your own terrain. Even in Australia, it did not come by surprise. Do you not know that 2 years prior to that fire in Australia, there were cautions, there were indicators. But guess what? No one heeded the indications. No one even thought that a fire would increase of that caliber. We face the same thing here in the USA. We face the exact same thing, right? Now we're talking outside of some of the other wild events that are taking place, right? These are just natural events. So please, folks, be ready. Be ready for that. Keep that in your mind. But I cannot help but to see all these conditions beginning to coalesce. And that will happen again here in the USA. Hope that we're all ready for that, right? Hope that we are. The water, there's no dodging that. Water is going to be inundating quite a few things. If you guys haven't noticed over the months, the potential of these storms, like what's happening in Carolina, right? That's a low-pressure system causing tropical downpours. I'll say it again. It's simply a low-pressure system causing tropical downpours. That's what it is. Now, that means the average storm is going to be just like North Carolina. And if you guys are not familiar with what's happening in North Carolina, familiarize yourself with it. They were having massive flooding, right? So the average storm is going to cause that same issue all over the place. And all of you guys that live in Europe and you live in the USA and you live in the UK and places, even parts of Russia, you understand the weather patterns. These storms are going to begin to dump everywhere. The rain potential. Well, the rain potential is quite dangerous. It's very dangerous. Very dangerous. My goodness. So it's coming. It's coming. And which, in these days that we live in right now, these are, I can't help but to think back during the time of Noah, when everybody started having dreams of flooding. You read the book of Enoch and you start to see all these people were dreaming of flooding, right? Flooding. flooding here, flooding there. In prophecy, we're told about the conditions of the earth degrading quick, right? And I'm going to finally come out and save the earth. I know a lot of people are looking for a pole flip. Right? That's what they're looking for. I'm going to share you guys something I believe. Now, I've been mulling over this for some years now, but I believe this. We're very close to it. I believe the earth, number one, is going to lose its orbit. Here's what I'm saying. Earth is going to be knocked out of its orbit. We will not have the same orbit. I believe that's going to happen prophetically. I do. And when that happens, all the stars are going to seem out of place. All of them. Weather will drastically change here. And that will be the beginning of many years of great uncertainties. To date, we have been blessed. We have. All the forces necessary to hold us in orbit have been doing so, but they're starting to drift. There are signs. There are signs that we're not going to hold or maintain our orbit. And I can't help but to think of the Word of God and what it says. When it says the powers of heaven shall be shaken. I want you to think about something. If the powers of heaven are going to be shaken, right? If they're going to be shaken, that means up until that time they were not shaken. If they were not shaken up until that time, that means all the forces, right, that held everything in place was consistent. Soon the powers of heaven shall be shaken. And when they are shaken, then the forces that held us in place are not going to hold us in place. Sometimes we think backward. We do. We think backward because we're not familiar with the destruction of this earth. We've read about it. We have hints about it. We've not gone through it. We don't live long enough to witness something like that. But I want you guys to think of something. In common language, they'll say, well, you know, the odds of something hitting the earth is 1 in a million. Time to think differently. Time to think truthfully. And you know what I believe the truth is? I'm saying this. I believe the truth is this. It's not a 1 in a million chance that we're hit by something. No. There have been too many things that have come this way. And strangely, they have made U-turns, 90-degree turns. Their orbits have been altered right before it hit the earth, and this has been witnessed by those in the space agencies, Air Force Command, Space Force. So it's been witnessed. The earth is being protected. That means the angels are on the job. Right? They're on the job. There's actual intervention. It's a 1 in a million chance. A 1 in a million chance. Not that we're, they say, well, it's a 1 in a million chance that comet's going to come and slam into the earth and hit us. No. The only reason they say 1 in a million chance is to assume that nothing has ever taken that trajectory. They know that's a lie. They know it's a lie. They know that something has been intervening all this time. So in truth, it's a 1 in a million chance we're not hit by something. That kind of throws statistics out of the window. Probability is a non-subject when dealing with life and survivability and these calamities on the earth. Volcanoes. What do they report every time a volcano goes off? Every single time there's a major eruption, what is reported? Can somebody tell me what is reported going in and out of the volcano? All of you know. Every single last one of you know. It's just something, people don't talk about it. But why is it reported every single time. Every single time. Because everything we go through is being managed. Things have been held back. Just as you've been sustained until this very day. You have. You know, and I know, that the things that manifested in our lives, should have most certainly killed us, taken us, sent us off a path where we would never even think about Christ. It's not that we had resolve and could somehow keep our lives in alignment with Christ. No, there's been intervention. There's been intervention with us since day one. All of us have a similar story. All of us have a story that, in all probability, we shouldn't be here. All of us do. There's been intervention. I want you to think of our stability, the little bit that we have today. We have that stability because of intervention, not because of probability, because of intervention. Intervention. That means the angels, the watchers that were assigned their position after the first watchers fell, they've been on the job. God's angels he assigned to keep the forces, to keep things going. They've been on the job. Personally, I think in part that's what a lot of people have been witnessing. Angels on the job. They did so in times past. They do so now. I believe that. I strongly believe that. I do. Some of you have seen things up close. I've seen a few things up close. So to me, it's not a question if those things are real or not. That's not the question. That is not the question. I've also seen them prior to calamities. I've also seen what they do prior to calamities. I've seen the good and the bad of them. I've seen that. So to me, it's not a question if they're real or not. They're on the job. Some are evil, yes. For the most part, they've been on the job. We just don't understand everything they're doing. We don't.